Welcome everyone. Today we're going to go over chapter 10 of SarDeSai. Let me take myself out. Past and present, chapter 10, the French in Vietnam and Cambodia. The learning objectives today is learn about how the French dominated Vietnam and Cambodia, learn about how the conflict between Thailand and Vietnam, learn about the invasion of France and Thailand into Cambodia, learn about the Vietnamese colonial conquest by France. Now, this is a fascinating story, the French in Vietnam and Cambodia. Now, first, we should start that there was some persecution of Catholics in Vietnam. What happened was the French had a movement to, one could call it a civilizing movement or a colonization movement or a movement to change the culture. The French very much wanted to change the religion of lots of Vietnamese, and so they pushed Catholicism, okay? Consequently, the emperors knew that this would be a culture change and maybe even a culture threat, and so they actually started persecuting Catholics. So again, France was pushing Catholicism into Southeast Asia, in particular Vietnam, and in pushback, the Vietnamese Mandarins as well as the Vietnamese actually objected to Catholicism. Now, France had a long-term plan to convert Vietnamese to Catholics. Religion was related to politics. Vietnamese emperors like Minh Mang opposed Catholic presence and revolted. They felt that the Catholicism was a threat to their Vietnamese culture. And again, historically, some Catholics were actually even burned alive. Now, if you look to the right, one Vietnamese emperor in particular, Minh Mang, you can see it's kind of a Chinese name, from 1820 to 1841, actually was one of the emperors who did object to Catholicism in Vietnam. Conquest of Cochin, China, which is another way of saying Vietnam, because remember, Vietnam and China had thousands of years wars against each other, and at one point, or for many points, China considered Vietnam part of its nation state. So in 1858, the French used the reports of Catholic persecution to invade and take over Vietnam. They wanted to establish a trading base like Singapore and Hong Kong. Now, they went to war, and in 1862, Vietnam capitulates, which means gives up, but there is still resistance by the Vietnamese, in particular the northern Vietnamese. The southern Vietnamese, which had a lot of more Mandarins, were not as resistive. Now, I want you to show a short documentary. I want you to look up Vietnam as Colony for France documentary, or you can just look up that YouTube, which is a great a short little clip on the documentary. Now, it was a protectorate, okay, over Cambodia. France is granted the right to navigate the Mekong River. France's Garnier, who was actually Garnier, who was a naval officer, had ideas of manifest destiny. You can pause right now, and I want to ask you, what is manifest destiny? Now, take a look. You might have learned this in 3rd grade, okay? So I won't tell you. You have to write down your notes. Now, while this is all going on, Cambodia's government was poorly run, and the king asked the French for assistance to fend off Vietnam and Thailand that was invading. Both Thailand and Vietnam invades Cambodia. Vietnam invades and takes over Cambodia in 1834. Now, of course, the Khmers resist the Vietnamese occupation, and there's a good quote that they talk about in the book, which is, "When elephants die, the ants on the grass die." What does that mean? Well, let's look at the cartoon here. The first one says, "Hey," the elephant or the giraffe says, "Hey, how dare you come to the land of the giraffes?" An elephant comes from the land of elephants and wants to take over the land of giraffes because of better resources. So the next quote is, the elephant says, "Don't talk to me like that, you pencil neck. This land is better and I want it." So the elephant insults the giraffe. And then you hear the rah, which is from I would assume, maybe a smaller animal. The elephant and the giraffe fight for the land. Ah, now we know where the raw is coming from. It's ants. So the ants down below on the ground say, hey, what's going on? The ground is shaking all around us. Meanwhile, beneath the fight, these ants feel the ground shaking. Squish. The giraffe unwillingly steps on the ants and kills them. And then the giraffe goes, then the elephant goes, psst, I don't even like the spot anymore. That's right. Go back to the land of the elephants, the giraffe says. Both the giraffe and the elephant walk away from the fight, and the innocent ants die of nothing. So again, wonderful story board that occurs and really illustrates like what happened when Vietnam and Thailand invade Cambodia. So a lot of people died needlessly. In 1862, King Norodom, uncrowned, asked France to be the protectorate of Cambodia to get rid of Vietnam. The Franco-Thai Treaty ensures that Thailand has sovereignty over Battambang and Siem Reap. Now, Garnier TongKing adventure. Now, remember we talked about Garnier was a naval officer with France. So the Mekong is deemed unsuitable as a commercial artery into southern China. A lot of people want to know why is Singapore and Hong Kong such great trading ports. It had a lot to do with they had actually very deep harbors and a lot of boats can go in and out. So now they deem that Mekong, which is also a river, is not deemed suitable. It's not suitable because there's constant rains, monsoons, and lots of environmental I would say barriers to easy a lot of boat action up and down. So the French intermediary Garnier loses his life. So this is very shocking to both the Vietnamese as well as France, okay? So the Mandarins or the Chinese Vietnamese forces fight France, right? Because remember, they consider Vietnam at one point to be part of their nation state, and they lose. So this ends the kind of the 2,000 years subordination or tributary system they had over Vietnam, which is, you know, in some cases one could say in a positive manner. So in 1885, France takes over Vietnam. So again, today you learned that how the French dominated Vietnam and Cambodia, and you learned about the conflict between Thailand and Vietnam. You learned about the invasion of France and Thailand into Cambodia, and you learned about the Vietnamese colonial conquest. Wonderful. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and have a wonderful day.